Wow. Oh my God.
Are we one? Are we infinite? Are we temporary?
Our guest tonight is a virtuosic player of Near East instruments from the ancient world, from Mesopotamia, including ney and santur and many, many others, including percussion instruments. He's also an incredible producer, composer, and artist. I present Danny Shamoun. Thank you for joining us, Danny.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
All right, amazing. Well, Danny, you really, truly are an incredible musician. And, the name of this podcast is Spiritual Arts Podcast. And, when I hear you play, I really hear true spirit flowing. It's really incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I wanted to ask you that must be a conscious thing for you too, right?
The spiritual side of the delivery of the message.
Yeah. And when you're playing an instrument, it must have some kind of connection to something. I hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you start as a child with that original passion that is planted from that first memory, I don't know if you really get it then, and you start to practice and you play because it's fun, and then you start to gather experiences in life, and then you start to realize that it becomes therapy more than fun, and then things start unfolding and start to create this routine in your life where, at least for me, and I know for many other musicians that I'm close with, it becomes your doctor and your best friend, and it becomes, your relationship with your instrument, whether it's at the time when I was really young, it was drums and playing keyboards and like trying to emulate melodies that I heard from orchestras and bands. And then you start to drift off into outer space while you're playing, and you just leave your consciousness almost, and you snap back in, and you're just like 12, 13 years old going, wow, that's a very powerful feeling. I want to feel that again. So you dive deeper the next day, and you just like start to just play with this emotion that you start to develop with it. And then when you take that and graduate into a stage performance and you start to see how it affects people, now it's starting to become this interesting exchange with everyone that you're playing for. And then you start to bring in a little bit more dedication, harder practice, because now you have bigger gigs to perform for and bigger audiences. And now you start to notice that this is not just a place where people are coming to have a drink and let loose. This is a place where people really need to come to turn off a little bit from their day-to-day, because they don't do what we do where they just sit on a piano for 5 hours. They're crunching numbers, doing things, whatever that job is, whether they like it or don't. And when they come to hear a performance and see that, depending on what you're delivering to them, it can profoundly impact their day, their week, their month, because that's what happened to me. I can only speak personally when I went to see a wonderful performer, a band, where that week, that month, you're just so motivated, so, just connected into the music so beautifully in a spiritual way, for sure. But it came much later for me.
The spiritual aspect?
Yeah. I didn't even know. I didn't, in 1994, you didn't hear the word manifesting, but you were dreaming while you were sleeping as a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. And I was just painting the picture of, oh, I'm going to move to LA one day, and I'm going to meet a band, and I'm going to start a band, and all these things, like piece by piece. But it was just a way to put myself to sleep, It wasn't necessarily like a well thought out thing. It was just literally like, I have insomnia. I'm 12 years old. I don't like to sleep at 10 p.m. when your parents tell you to go to bed. So I just sit in bed and I would drum on my teeth.
Whoa.
And I would just create drum beats on my teeth and just drum. And I didn't even consciously understand what I was doing, But I was like, I'm going to just practice every moment I can because I can't sleep. I can't shut off my mind. I'm hearing a loop of a song. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drum on my back teeth. Those are going to be the kicks. My middle teeth are going to be the snare, and the front are the hi-hat.
Jesus. What, can you still do that?
Yeah, I do.
Is it
all
like
the time.
beatboxing?
Kind of. It's like you hear these little clicks in your mouth, and you
Wow.
know, and you just like, and it just like keep me up all night just trying to play music when you can't have an instrument in your hand.
Wow.
Yeah, but later on, you start to realize, you know, when I got much older, in my, let's say, later 20s even, I was just like, you know, you start to realize that it's such a natural love. Natural, I don't want to use the word obsession in a negative way, but I was and still am obsessed with practicing, playing instrument, composing. But then it was just so natural and innocent. And, you know, you meet a couple teachers and they give you a couple tips. And then from those tips, you just dream about it all night and how you improve your playing, because I know that I have to get myself to a certain level to be able to perform with great musicians that I wanted to play
So
with.
you still practice?
Yes, I do. To be completely honest, I don't practice as much. Like when you were a little kid, you were literally going over, you know, just do, re, mi, fa, back and forth with one hand, you know, five fingers.
Spiders on the guitar.
Exactly, you know. But now I do much more intricate practice, like on the flute, how to hold a half hole and the beautiful, like the glissando, how can I like pull it a lot more smooth. And with the drums, more of my drumming practice is on my steering wheel in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I still do practice. Yeah, I'll pull up an old song, and that's like my my warm up. You know.
Yeah.
For flute, drums, or keyboards, I have specific songs I love to play to.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bass player, I forget her name, but she toured with the Rolling Stones. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Did she play with Jeff Beck too, or is
that's right.
Yes. I forget her name, but she's a master. Yeah.
Well, she's a master, but she hasn't been playing very long, and that's the very interesting thing about it, because I saw a podcast where she was talking about it, and she was saying that she basically went from zero to like being super pro very, very fast.
Wow.
Because she practiced in her sleep.
Yeah.
Like she would actually visualize playing the scales, like as she would close her eyes and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then her actual physical practice was very minimal. And it was more like mentally visualizing what the fingers should be doing.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
Absolutely, because I don't, you know, my idols growing up were athletes more than musicians, because I didn't have Rolling Stone magazine. We didn't have internet. We had MTV, and Behind the Music started to help out a bit on VH1 when they would tell the inside stories of those great albums. But for me, it was athletes. So Wayne Gretzky, the ice hockey player, you know, his father had Walter Gretzky set up lights in his backyard so he could practice at night, because they couldn't get him off the rink in the backyard that they had froze for him back in Brantford, Ontario. And so I was like, oh, wow, he practices. I want to play even when the lights are off. I want to practice even when, like Pele's story, when he was just a little kid and he just had the ball glued to his foot in Brazil, and, you know. And I was just like, wow, that's what they did to be great. I want to do what they do because I want to be like them. Like, that's just how I thought as a kid. You know, they tell you to do a biography on somebody in a report in English class, and I picked Pele or Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan. And I just saw that the work ethic, they all correlated, and they all just had the same kind of, you know, like I said, again, an obsession with practicing and trying to be as good as they could possibly get. And then I started playing drums and hand drums and drum set, playing to like Jimi Hendrix albums and, you know, James Brown live at the Apollo, just trying to get that like Clyde Stubblefield groove down at the ghost notes they played, because they were playing very simple stuff. Their fills weren't very intricate, but they were, you know, when they would play in unison, there was just such beautiful things going on. And some great masters would tell me, like, get live at the Apollo. You got to play to that. It's going to help You know, because I'm not this guy who grew up with like, oh, this kid has perfect timing, or this guy can just pick up an instrument and he's just great at writing songs. I didn't have that story, you know. I had the story of like complete start from zero, no musical knowledge, and the skill of the passion to practice more than the skill of like the natural thing, the natural talent. And funny enough, talking about the sleep thing, one of my great friends, Quentin Denard, a master engineer in Detroit, Michigan right now, still out there doing amazing things. He was a gospel drummer in the church. And he told, because I was having a problem, I was rushing the time. I'm in the studio trying to play to a click. And I was always like kind of just too emotional and tightening up my muscles too much and speeding up the beat. And he's like, oh man, you know what we do is we sleep with a metronome in our ears.
Oh my God, what?
And I was like, oh really? That works? He goes, bro, you're going to see the next time you sit on a drum set, you're going to be so tight. And he was so nice because he was such a good musician and like light years ahead of me because his dad was a master drummer who's in like the book of the 100 greatest drummers and, you know, one of those kind of families. My mother's a great singer and everything. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. So I get my Boss or Korg metronome at the time, put on these like, you know, the Walkman headphones, you know, with the foam. And I told him, I said, well, what do you do? He goes like every like hour, change the time. And like, if you start with like 85 BPM, go to 95, switch the time. And then, so I put the metronome and I'd start drumming to those for like an hour. And then like another hour, I wake up, bump up the BPM, now playing a different beat in my head. And now I'm just like drumming to this metronome. Kind of drove me a little crazy. You get a little, because now you're tired, you need to sleep, there's a school tomorrow. But the next time I sat on a drum set, it didn't take 10 times to sleep with a metronome. The next time I slept and I played on a drum set, I didn't rush the beat the same way. I was just like escaping the time, just being this young guy, just trying to play a heavy rock and roll beat or something. I actually was playing it. I was learning how to play with the click. You know, you rush, play ahead of it, play behind it, but you're still with it. And I find that experience to be monumental for my timing as a musician, as a timekeeper.
Okay, what do you think of this? So, so I play guitar and piano, and my main instrument is actually guitar. I've sort of pivoted more into piano now, but guitar is what I started with, and it's what I got good at first. And when I was probably like 20 to 25, I was pretty good guitar player. You know, like I was able to do a lot of those flashy things. But every time I would go to the studio to record something simple, it was very hard for me to play with a click track, and my timing was like all over the place. I'd have to do so many takes to get it, you know?
It's frustrating and it kind of gets you. You're like, yeah.
Right. Now, okay, both with piano and with guitar, I never practice. I'm a bit sloppy. I can't do some of the crazy things I used to be able to actually do, like with the, you know, like guitar fancy work, you know? And even with piano, like I don't really do anything fancy. But when I press record, I'm a one-take wonder. Like, it's in the pocket. I've always wondered, like, how is this, what is it that when I was actually a much better musician, I was not able to play in the pocket. Now that I'm a much more basic musician, because I just don't practice, and I'm so relaxed, and I just kind of don't give a fuck, I play a record. I mean, a lot of my album, honestly, this is nuts. A lot of my new album, which is 19 songs, I actually started by just doing like little Instagram videos of me playing piano. And like, I'm like playing piano and singing something. And that is the performance I'm using on my album. It was so in time. There was not even a click. There was no metronome. Just playing this was so in time that when I put it in my computer, it already was on the grid. And then I just built a drum beat around it and produced it and whatever. But it's like the one take I did, free take, is it. And that's like on 19 songs, I think at least 11 of them are like that. What's happening?
Yeah, I used to be the same way to engineers. Another take. Oh, no, I don't like that fill. Oh, I don't. You know, after playing with so many greats, sitting in the studio with like Darren Malakian and recording with a master like him, and seeing how he just like plays the song the way the song is played. And if he does more takes, it's just because he just wants to try a different tone, if anything. And I noticed the relaxation is the most important part. And when I record Santur or Ney on anything that you'll hear of mine, it's all max two tries, but it's the first take that is usually being kept. And sometimes we're writing when you're writing a bunch of riffs in one take, and then you're trying to find that hook just to pull it out of the air somewhere. And yeah, it's very interesting. I don't have those anymore where I like look at my sessions and see like 12 different versions. It's always the beginning.
Right?
Like, that's
Amazing.
it. Yeah.
So that's because that's not about practice. That's just about like mellowing out in life, kind of, right?
I was just going to say that. I think it's more about when we take the pressure off of trying to create a song to impress somebody and create a story to tell, because we're experiencing life and we want to talk about this story through sound and beautiful music. I think that's when it changes. And that's when it's not about finding the perfect take. It's about we're delivering the story because we do it so often. You know, we play music every day. And when I don't play music, it's probably because I'm in an airplane and I'm watching a music documentary, if I could find it, or like the Silk Road documentary on the Emirates or Qatar flight I was on, or, you know, or picking up my computer and going over some little quick editing I need to do. So I try to keep music a big part of my everyday movements. And then there's moments to break when you go to nature, when you go to the water, the ocean. You know, I think that's really essential to just kind of not burn out a bit too, because you can get a little too loopy with the same routine.
I love that you play these acoustic instruments that, that the body of the instrument itself has such a major part of creating the sound.
Mm-hmm.
And the interaction of the wood, the shape that it's been hollowed out in, your breath, you know, the way that this all interacts. I love that. And, you know, sometimes I think to myself, because I love synths, I love produced music, I love all this stuff. But aside from music, I sometimes sort of think to myself, like, you know, if we didn't have electricity, let's say, or if the world changes dramatically and like we have to start living campfire style again and whatever, right? And we got to take it all the way back to acoustic, like banging on a piece of wood and like plinking some strings or whatever, you know, like I think to myself, like if you can express that story that you're talking about through that simplicity, I almost feel like it's the most powerful sometimes.
You know, specifically talking about the reed, flute, the ney, and the Santur. The Santur being a 72-string hand-hammered dulcimer made of walnut wood. The ney being just a reed. The word ney just means stick in Farsi, right? And it's just a stick. And it's made for fishing poles. It's made for fence.
I don't know if it means this it might mean stick in ancient Farsi, but in modern Farsi, it means straw. Straw.
Oh, yes. Like a stick or straw. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. And so this instrument is such a simple instrument, right? But it also has a very intricate story. As simple as it is, because meaning simple, it's a tube. It's a hollow tube. And on the top, they have a small little opening where they have to kind of like hollow this instrument out. And they hollow it out, but they leave the top hole with a smaller little opening to kind of create this like almost vortex to get the sound box, you know, you'd call it. And so talk about the simplicity is 1 out of every 30,000 reeds in the wild can be cut and made into a playable flute.
Wow.
This is what the masters tell me. Because if you go out into the wild and in the Mediterranean and wherever the reeds are growing, the Latin term is arondo donax is for this instrument. And you try to find one that resembles the playable professional grade flutes that we play, the nays we play. You can't find one. None of them look like it. They have to have 9 segments in order for the holes to match up. And you look and none of them, because to have a 9 segment A, which is called a Husseini flute, it has to be this tall. The B and the lower octave has to be like this. So those 9 segments have to be perfectly grown by Mother Nature.
Wow.
Mother Nature has to create the perfect dimensions. Mother Nature has to create this miracle of a beautiful straw stick, right? And then the master maker sees it, cuts it. Then he dries it in the sun for 1 to 2 years, sometimes longer. Yeah, dry it in the sun.
Yeah.
Because it comes out green, full of moisture, and it's very dense inside. So they burn the inside or with a big, file. And then he has a template for the B, the C, they would say like Rastkaz, Busalik, the names, they're all Farsi names, 2 ancient Farsi names for the notes, Jiharka and Husseini and Doka. And then he drills the holes and kind of hopes for the best. And if he drills them correctly, there's some masters, they kind of have, they know, blow sounds like it's playable, 440 tuning. They ask me too, and we want to make it, do you want it 432 or 440? And then you get this instrument because you heard it on an album and it's so fascinating and it's this ancient sound that really touches your heart and it reminds you of, maybe an ancient ancestor that you don't even know about or something. I don't know. But it touches you if you wanted to try to play it. So then you get this instrument and you think, I'm going to start making a sound because I see the guy. They just put their head like this and they play it. And nothing comes out. And nothing comes out. Over and you try and you're like, no, hold on. And you start trying and trying. You go to a master and they're all look at you and they're like, you're really trying to do this? Because you go to a piano teacher, you go to a guitar teacher, like, all right, they put you through the process. You put your hands here, you do this and it strums. You don't know how to play yet, but your strum, you made a sound. You hit this, you make a sound. No sound comes out. And you go to a guy to teach you and he tells you, he's like, well, this is a bit of a tough road. You sure you want to do this? And you're like, yeah, I want to learn how to play this. Like, all right, well, here's step 1. Don't close any of the holes and try to make a sound and come back to me when you make a sound. And 99% of the guys never come back and they just put it away and they never play the ney. And I just obsessed on trying to make the sound. And this story gets much more interesting than a beginner trying to just blow a sound and creating Coke bottle just hiss. And it starts with the most obnoxious squeak you ever heard in your life. And it's just not pleasant to the ear or anything. And whoever's in the house or whoever's near you. And then all of a sudden, I'm going to say maybe 3 to 6 months later, you're squeaking and and then you finally get one sound when all the holes open.
Yeah.
You can't close any of the holes because it gets really challenging the more you close holes. So now out of the 7 holes on the ney, you have all open. Now you create a sound. And now you play that sound for almost 1 year. And then you close the back hole. And you play that for a few months. Because every time you try to close this hole, it doesn't play anymore. Because you have to teach your body. We're talking about spiritual connection to a plant, to a natural growing fibers, in nature. And then you start to close this hole and you create a sound. You close this hole, you close this, you close 1, 2, and 3. Now you could play with all them closed. You know how many years have passed? Over 5 years have passed.
Jeez. Now, I would imagine that if you have to spend that long just to get a very basic sound, it's also a strongly meditative process.
It is, because now you're circulating this air over and over and over again. The beginning, you get very dizzy, like any kind of breathing technique that you're trying to teach your brain to, circulate this much air and oxygen and blowing deep, long, long whole notes. And there's no shortcut. Another very interesting fact about this interesting, beautiful instrument, there's no child prodigy on YouTube who can play it like does. There's children who play clarinet incredibly in Turkey that play like masters that I know of there, but I'm sure many other places. There's, the children that play incredible piano and violin and guitar. There's no childhood prodigy that plays the ney. And if there is, I would love to see that. But it's an instrument that needs you to accumulate life experiences, because I didn't even know that in the beginning. I'm playing this. I want to make, my idea was I want to make, first I got an album with the sound of the ney and the kawala, the two relatives. And I was like, oh, I want to make this ancient sound. I want to learn how to play the most ancient music, because I just would love to take the oldest and incorporate it into the newest, right? Like the electronic music and stuff. And so, I realized that until I started to incorporate my life stories and telling the stories and really, truly, anytime you see a guy play the ney, our eyes are closed. Yeah, we can play with our eyes open, but we have to play because it is extremely deep connection into your soul, into your spirit. You don't drink alcohol and play this instrument. You don't sit like this with your legs up and play it. You play with your feet grounded, because you respect the instrument. You play with 2 feet on the ground, and you have a technique. Hold it. Anytime you try to slouch, the pitch goes. Anytime,
Wow.
that you have to really, truly, truly give it a high level of amount of respect. Where I play the hand drums, darbuka, bongos, you can kind of jam out and in random posture and slouch your back and stuff. But with the ney, it's almost a majestic queen, and you have to respect her when you greet her.
So what? Amazing. So what's going through your mind when you're playing it now?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Zero.
Wow.
Nothing. Nothingness. You know that true nothingness they talk about?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what I think started to intoxicate me, was that feeling of shutting off everything. And then I didn't realize that it was just like the oxygen. It was more like that. It was, this breathing, and I don't do circular breathing with it, but there's this constant air coming and going and coming and going. And you don't have time to think, and you start to practice these very intricate pieces of music, classical music from Egypt and Turkey, for me especially. And they're very intricate pieces, so you're just rewinding the tape and going back and forth to get the parts down, and then you have to just let it go and let the muscle memory take over.
Do you have any awareness at all of what you're playing when you're doing that, when you're doing the performance?
You can't. It's weird. It's so hard to explain.
So you're not reading. You don't do it by reading music.
I
you
did.
memorize it.
Oh no, I did. I definitely did. In school at UCLA, when I studied with my master, Dr. A.J. Racy, I was reading the classical music. But now, because I'm composing my own music with it, I don't think about it in that way. When you're at school, you're reading the piece, and it's not as meditative. I would say, not to disrespect it, but it's more systematic. You're
Right.
working the piece. You have a part to play. You're waiting for your time. You're counting the bars for your moment, because the ney has its special moments, right?
Yeah.
But I'm speaking more on when I started to connect the instrument. I would say after my first sound meditation with my brother Goldcap, Berge, right?
Yeah.
He got me involved in sound meditation experiences that I had no idea about, because I was in the educational world. I was at UCLA studying with PhDs, and we were all just very technical with things, and raise the quarter tone up, it's a little low, bring it up more. So I have to kind of air pressure on that note, and I do all these intricate movements in my body to create the pitch to be as good as I can get it, right? And once I went into the sound meditation world, I just, he approached me one day when I first met him, and he's like, "Oh, wow, you play these instruments." I was like, "You ever done a sound meditation?" This is 2020, 6 years ago. I was like, "What's a sound meditation?" Because, you're playing orchestral works. You're performing. You're a part of a team, of a bunch of people. So you're not thinking of what do you mean?
Was it liberating for you to break out of that academic world and sort of get into a more free form?
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to say that because I was playing for the greatest masters in the world in front of my face, and they were coaching me. It was just very important moments, you know. And then once I let loose, and it's almost like I started to let the inner person, the inner spirit of my ancient ancestral DNA speak, talk the stories.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean exactly? I mean, I have a feeling, but
Well, there was these sounds that affected my spirit and soul when I was a little kid, hearing music from the lands where my grandparents were from. But I never knew that. I was born in Detroit, Michigan. But if I heard a Turkish song, a specific one, so if it was from an Istanbul composer, I vibed with it. But when it was from the composers from our villages, it would make me cry. And I didn't know why. I wasn't a sad guy. I was a happy, athletic kid. But I would like have tears come down and I'd be sad. It was like it affected me.
did you know it was from where your
No,
roots are from?
no, I didn't. It was this natural kind of like, I know that I'm connected to this sound, but I don't know why and how. And I never asked. It was just a thing that I wanted on all the time. I just always will play on the recorder, on the machine to listen. And then once I started to evolve and the Nate came into my life, and now I'm not just drumming, but I'm creating melodic stories. After the sound meditation, I started to envision my grandma's village. And then people would come to me and say, hey man, you took me back to my great grandmother's, and I was sitting in a campfire with her, and I went back to my old homeland, and one after another. And then every time we do a sound meditation, I'm like, okay, I hope they enjoy what I'm going to play today, because this is going to be, quite the journey. And, I start playing, and again, another person comes. I never connected with my ancestors, but now I want to because of what I heard. And they were coming from they were all Turkish people or Syrian people or Israeli or from Lebanon or wherever, right? And so I started to think about it, and I'm like, wait, I'm telling my great-grandparents' story. I'm feeling that this is not coming just from my life experiences in Detroit, because the tone of the melody is coming from somewhere much deeper than that.
What do you think is actually happening in terms of, so you have no idea what you're listening to. You don't know that what you're listening to is related to your heritage, but nonetheless, when you hear it, it moves you to tears, and it makes you have memories that you weren't even aware of from this life. What is happening exactly?
From my personal studies of DNA memory code and ancestral traumas and things that people have brought to my attention, and I also did research just based off of, does a DNA strand carry memory? Does is there something inside of us that has some kind of awakening spirit when they hear something, right? And then I start to research about, frequencies, that resonant frequencies, right? And of course, about hitting the pitchforks and the same tuning, and the one that doesn't get struck resonates. And the one, if you take one that's in B and one that's in G, the G doesn't ring because it's so. And then you start to study water, right? And you start the study that they did with the water and the freezing of the water with positive words to it, and the one with negative words when it freezes. The ice cubes are these snowflakes are extremely distorted, and the ones that are so beautiful and symmetrical that are spoken to very beautifully, right? And then I start to realize, I say, wow, I see what's happening right here. Inside of all of us is an ancient relative. And what I think, it's a hypothesis of mine, what I think is happening is when that frequency is entering our body, and our internal DNA memory code, who existed in many of our ancestors, feels that frequency shape, that is identical to that ancient frequency that was happening to them, because we're playing in microtonal scales, and our instruments are also very, very ancient frequency rings of the santur, rings very different than a guitar, and rings very different than a piano, you know? And I started to think, I said, well, maybe since the tuning forks resonate, how are we not resonating inside when we feel a frequency that resembles something that our ancient ancestors had heard around a campfire, or around a wedding, or around some kind of a, religious ceremony?
That's the frequency aspect of it. But what about the melodic aspect of it, or the scales? Because obviously, even within those types of music, the Turkish, the Egyptian, the Assyrian, the Persian, there's differences amongst those,
Oh, yeah.
Let alone to Western music. There's so much differentiation. And that's something deeper than just frequency. That's the,
We call it lahje.
There you go.
The lahje is the accent.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if you're playing a quarter tone in Mardin, the village where, let's say, the city my mother's from, that quarter tone, it's raised a little bit, about 15 to 10 centi more than when you play it in Syria. And where you play it somewhere else, a little bit more west, it's not a quarter. It's like, if a quarter is like registered at -50, it'll be like -35. And in Iran, they have a completely different number where their accent for that scale will be, and it sounds completely different than the one in Mardin, different than the one that's played in Syria or Egypt.
And how about the scales themselves, like the sequence of notes, like Phrygian, Dorian, and whatever the scale would be in each of these cultural styles?
Those scales, a lot of them for us, like we grew up in the church, in Christian Syrian Orthodox Church, so we had compositions that were written in the 700s, and so those, because the religious music was so important, that was really where you heard music the most, probably, or around campfire. So each village in each region has its own. You go to Aleppo, Syria, the music is completely different than where we come from, a place called Qamishli. You go to Damascus, doesn't sound a single thing like the music of Aleppo. And Aleppo's music is extremely sophisticated Arabic music. They play this form called muwashahat, which is just the time signatures change, and they have the books of these. The music is written in like this poetry form, a very intricate Arabic. Ours, where we come from in northeast over there, is much more celebratory, fun, happy wedding music, some slow songs that are very sad, a lot of music about lost love and stuff like that. But the melodies change from village to village, and the intonation changes from area to area. It's all the same area, just when you're in this area, you have to know you raise the quarter tone a little bit more. If you're in that area, you play it just like the quarter tone comes out on your instrument. So it's a very intricate thing that took me a lot of time to internalize, because it takes not just to practice it, because we're here studying in the United States. It took me to have to go to those lands, fly there as a complete beginner instrumentalist, like in those instruments, sit, smell the air, smell the food, smell the bakery, walk around, hearing the prayers. Then your intonation starts to get better, because now you're immersing yourself not just in the instrument or in the sound, but you're now living in the land, the soil of the sound. You're actually feeling the vibration in the ground. You're hearing the street sounds that created these people's music.
The ancient world, where the music, you feel like there's a bridge between, the music is a bridge between that ancient culture and where you're at, and you're saying that the music sort of like awakens a memory in your DNA. What do you think the music itself, and I don't mean the tone or the lahje, I mean the actual, like the song, the melody, right? What do you think is encoded in that?
Identity. Identity for the people of that village, pride. When you hear that song that, that is from your village. I remember when I was a little kid and we'd go to these big festivals and they would play. It was all people from our area, from Mardin, Urfa, Qamishli, Hasake, this region in Mesopotamia, northern Mesopotamia. And you felt connected to the sound. Now, when they played Halab music from Aleppo and Damascus, we still danced. We loved it, but it was a completely different thing when they played the song from our village or the song from our city. It's your identity. It's your pride. It's your heritage.
And you would feel that even without knowing that it's yours.
Yeah, we just
Wow.
I would obsess over it. And then I'd be like, oh my God, what's this guy playing on the keyboards? This is the coolest sound I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
So I would look into newspaper. How do you find a T3 Korg or O1W FD Korg? Remember those O1Ws, the M1 Korg?
Yeah.
And my dream was to have a Korg with the T3 on the back of it because, they had their cool triple decker stands and those sounds were emulating those ancient like mijwiz, mazmar, those double reeded instruments that have those high pitched tones that really move the debke music, the dancing music. And so I would say it just gives you that identity because we're over here in America. We were going to parties in Canada and Ontario a lot and stuff. And it would bring that together because at school, you're a part of all this completely different nationalities. And it was just awoken this pride of hey, this is our sound and we're going to celebrate all together to this sound because we're not back home anymore. And I've never been back home. So we're going to live that home together. That togetherness, bringing us all really, it's a wonderful thing how it can bring all these people together with sound.
Yeah.
Many differences with all different kind of ideas they have, but with music and sound, they all come together and dance. It's a beautiful thing.
For sure it is. What do you feel in terms of music as it's because you said that you went to this sound bath and things like that, so obviously a lot of people think of that type of music as a healing modality these days, and they also there's no melody with it, it's atonal, right? What do you think about that?
The sounds that you experience in the meditation experiences.
I mean, it's a two-part question. I guess the first part is, what do you think about the sounds in a meditation, and what do you think about the difference between tonality and atonality when it comes to a healing experience? And then the second part of that question is that actually with a melodic instrument like your ney, integrating that into an atonal situation, does it integrate or do they fight each other, or what do you think?
Interesting. Yeah, very, very, very interesting questions. Well, first part, my first sitting in this situation, it was a very nervous moment for me because I had never experienced such a thing before, and I didn't know what, because my friend's like, bro, you've only experienced music with your eyes open and consciously, and he goes, I know your experiences with, with your work in school and education and being in your rock bands in the past, it's just full, this is the job we do and you got to learn the song and whatever it is, there's going to this experience where you're laying down for 7 to 8 hours and you're just completely submission and allowing this experience to happen, but I don't know what's about to happen, and I see all these different things. And he even had an instrument called the kotamo that blew my mind. He even had it invented with some guy. It's an incredible thing Berge was doing, and I never had a gong experience before, because for us it's all about a beautiful string line, it's all about a beautiful drum beat, it's all about an incredible flute sound or a different kind of woodwind or something, keyboards, piano. And now I'm experiencing the most intense, loudest sound I ever heard in my entire life. And some guys do gong ceremonies gentle, and some guys bring the fire. And it was extremely disturbing in the beginning, where I was scary, but I didn't realize what was happening. It was rattling all the insecurities and problems and issues and things I had tucked away for many years. I had no idea what was happening. And my fear took such a powerful, it overcame any kind of excitement or joy that I was having to be here, experience this wonderful thing, because it was so loud and it was so, and I just had to like dig really deep to find my peace during all that chaos, because it was very, very tough. But I didn't realize that it was also shaking all the things that I had tucked away that I never dealt with, that I needed to deal with. So I started to realize through that chaos that I was experiencing, this is specifically through the gong ceremony section of the 7 hours, 8 hours of the meditation, where I realized, I was like, whoa, this is not just about music. This is not just about, oh, it has to be the most beautiful melody ever. This is a very intentional situation that humans have created, of this masterpiece that comes from the elements of the earth, hammered, fire, a lot of different kind of extremes to create this tone. And it took me into an African savanna, and I felt a rebirth into a life of a lion. Wow. I went into a lion's life, into a lion's eyes, into a lion's entire journey from leaving his family, because I was so scared. I was like, this sound, but I didn't know that the frequency is coming so harsh to my cells, and it's shaking off all the dust of all the things that I always tucked away, all the things. And we all live life, we all go through things, and we put them away and we act like it's over, but sometimes it's not. And so you're saying those atonal experiences, because we're coming from trying to play this as beautiful as we can, and now I'm in this like harsh environment. There's a moment during the sound meditation where he had this fishing wire on this little random stick, and he would turn it and it would just make clicks, chick, 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 chick. And that click becomes like in the savannah, like crickets, and things are happening to me, but I'm this baby going through this new understanding of myself that has nothing to do with music anymore. The sounds are actually guiding a new human to be created, a new style of thinking, a new confidence in yourself. Who are you? This tattoo is not a design. This is a reminder of you have to be strong in this journey, being soft and being scared and being insecure and being, full of fear of accomplishing your goals is something you have to, because, you get to a certain level and then you got to go get it. And once you go get it, it's not just like the party starts, things get really serious. And so shortly after that, he woke me up and told me, he's like, we would love to hear you play some ney right now in the sound meditation. So going from all of that to playing the ney, I started playing it in a way where, I was playing the cries. I was playing cries. I wasn't playing a song. I was playing really, 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 really sad melodies. And that moment was like true. That's why I got the tattoo. I got the tattoo because I don't want to ever forget that moment was one of the most important ones for my next step in how I deliver my music and how I deliver my message. So to answer your second part of it, I find it, because now I've done a few sound meditations, after that, the past 6 years. And I found it that after all those frequencies and special metal, devices and tools that you use, and when you twist them, it creates these amazing washes of sonic waves. When you start to incorporate now the notes, 440, 432, whatever tunings you're playing in, then you can even feel it in the breath of everybody that's in there. They just all take a big, big, deep breath, and they just all sit there, and they've been yearning for that. But you also have to kind of like, you have to rattle it a little bit, It's like kind of finding the black and the white, the yin and the yang, right? And you're kind of like, now you're bringing in the light after that. And it's very interesting where and when you implement it in the ceremony. Yeah, it's very, very interesting place. Like, it has to be in the right time, so that it's really like drinking a glass of cold water in the desert.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow. I'm kind of speechless because I'm like thinking about everything you just said. It's pretty incredible.
It's very powerful, because I never thought any of this was going to be a part of I thought I was going to play in a classical orchestra. I had no idea I was going to sit in the middle of a room of 30 people who are going through the most intense moments of, you're talking about people that have been through rape, abuse, things that, like, when they tell you the story, it's absolutely, very, very emotional, and it also becomes very beautiful because they tell you how amazing of an experience that this has helped them. I've had people talk about, it's saving their relationships, and not us, just the experience in general, the sounds, the instruments that are created.
And now, having sort of had a career that has spanned from the classical training all the way to doing these types of things, where you sit right now, do you have a preference or like an aesthetic or just like a mission of where you're trying to apply your talent?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's a natural kind of daily routine, where I've always said, I want to learn how to play these instruments that sing, that speak to my soul. And I always that was from the beginning, I always said, I want to always mix the old with the new. I want to take the newest electronic beat and mix it in with the oldest instrument ever. But I also want to electrify the oldest instrument ever. So there's this interesting like fusion that I'm working on, that I'm always trying to evolve. And but I also record just a pad and a flute also for my sound meditation songs that are on, my streaming platforms and stuff like that. So there's these like two sides of my personality and character that are coming out. And I don't think you can compose a piece of music that isn't true to who you are if it's not something that really is coming naturally. So, it's an interesting thing because sometimes, like for instance, for me, the most beautiful thing in the world is when I hear a composer make two completely different works of art. And I just love that. I love that. If a guy writes, let's just say, a house song, a house track, which is made very well, but then I hear him make an ambient, ethereal piece of music, like Brian Eno, let's say, And so in this day and age, sometimes it's an interesting thing. I hear a lot of mixed emotions about that. People say, oh, they'll be confused or something, but I don't look at it like that. I don't see that side. I see it as, yeah, I understand marketing and this and that needs different entities and stuff, but I actually find it extremely fascinating when a composer makes two completely different styles of music and puts it out. It's a beautiful thing for me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I really loved Andre 3000's electronic flute album.
What a great guy! I've watched. He did that Apple Music interview, and he's just it's beautiful. He spoke literally like everything, like going to the laundromat and playing the flute in the back alleys. I'm like, yeah, that's what we do, bro. We just play. We play. We play. And he would, I think he was taking first takes and just like that was it.
Yeah.
Because his album.
So when you said that when you play, you're literally in a state of total nothingness, right? But when you listen to other people play, is that also the case, or does it take you somewhere?
No, I think because I'm, there are some moments, obviously, like if you're at, there was one time I saw like Robert Plant play once in a backyard in the Pacific Palisades. That's when like you kind of feel like you're floating and there's definitely not a thought on earth, but it's a different feeling. There's, with that, sometimes you think about a beautiful girl you were in love with, a song reminds you of somebody, because you're not, breathing and playing the techniques and in that vibrational frequency coming at you from the instrument like the santur does. So yeah, I would say it's more nostalgia happens for me when I watch somebody that I love or listen to music I love. It's more nostalgic and it takes me more into a memory lane time capsule. Yeah.
Do you think music, physically, like the physics of music, do you think it represents some type of cosmic order of some kind?
Oh, wow. That's a very, very good question. I've been studying this book, which is written by Abu Nasr al-Farabi, who's one of the most, they call him the second teacher of like mankind, which is the first teacher is Aristotle. And Abu Nasr al-Farabi wrote a book called Al-Kitab al-Musiqa al-Kabir, which is the great book of music. And it was known, he died in 950, something like this. So about 1100 years ago, he wrote this book where he talks about music having some kind of metaphysical power connected to the cosmos. And it's a little bit like it's such an advanced topic, but when you think about it, how perfect is Mother Nature up there? How perfect it is, the stars, the alignment of the stars and the planets, and what happens during those alignments, and how the ancient people were aware of that, thousands of years ago, aligning buildings to the stars and the constellations. I do believe that it has something to do with the inspiration of the music of those lands, what they see in the night sky. Because, you're from Iran. The night sky and if you go into deep into the mountains is one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen in your entire life. I've been to Iraq in 2009 during the Gulf War. Whoa. And I stared at the sky and it was the most incredible thing I ever saw in my entire life. So when you think about, the poetry of OmarKhayyam, he talks about the cosmos in his poetry, Rubaiyat al-Khayyam, and that poetry began translated to Arabic and sung by Kulthum in one of her songs called Rubaiyat al-Khayyam, where they talk about the stars and the moon and the sky. And those things are extremely connected, One time there was, when there's a lunar halo around the moon, have you seen one of those when it's happened?
All the time.
Isn't that the most amazing? That happened to me one time when I was working on something. And I was in my studio playing, and a friend of mine, she calls me, just a really wonderful friend. She calls me and she says, go outside and look up right now.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I went and I saw this lunar halo and I wrote a piece of music.
Yeah.
And it's on my Spotify. It's a very meditative piece with piano. But I had no inspiration that day. That night I was in the studio. It was 12 o'clock. I was probably ready to shut it down. And I went up and looked at the sky, and it looked like one of those sci-fi movies. I'd never seen anything like that before. And it was so clear. And it's the cover of the record too. Took a picture of it with my phone. So yeah, I do believe that, the cosmos can add some beautiful inspiration.
And speaking of inspiration, what typically inspires you?
Muses. I
Meeting people.
I never knew what that meant before, and I used to have this very, very like skewed reality when I was a kid, where I was like, I don't need anyone, nothing. I just need music. I'm just music. And then I met somebody, and I couldn't stop writing when I would speak with her, and I couldn't stop creating, and all the songs that I've ever released were inspiration off something that I got from this experience. And I never even knew what a muse was. I just was living my life. Arabic is my first language, just English being my second, bunch of other languages in my life. But I tell a friend, and he's like, yeah, this is what a muse is. And I look it up, and through, the Greek mythology and the muses and the stories. And I realized, I said, oh my God, we do need each other for inspiration. Who am I to have said that all I need is me and my instruments and a room closed and I'm good and I could... No, you need that experience. You need that. And it's like heartbreak is so... it stings sometimes. But
sometimes, all the time.
Well, yeah. But then it creates... When you can create out of that and tell a story, it's such a powerful experience, because that outlet, doesn't let you hold it all in. Where... Yeah, inspiration from those life experiences, but also Mother Nature for me is the number one, just being in the middle of a forest, walking by myself, with no bears, of course.
Do you wish heartbreak on yourself so that you do have experiences to write about?
No, but when it happens, it's so crazy, because I'm not the kind of guy where, I sit down with the instrument the day after she walks out of the door and we don't see each other. It's like 7 months later, a year later, I process the situation, and then something will pop out and, I'll remember. But it's specific people inspire music for me. I don't believe that.
When you do... Let's just say you experience a heartbreak and 7 months later it comes out in the form of your art. Does that heal you of the heartbreak, or is it just something you're doing?
I think I call it like a recycler, recycling the emotion. So instead of taking it and holding it all in and going into like some downward spiral, which I don't do, it's just like I hold it into this reserved place, and then slowly, piece by piece, the experiences start coming out of like the nostalgic moments, the happiness, the joy, the really rough moments that happen in the relationship or something, and it starts to tell its own story. But I don't have any situations where It's very interesting. Only certain people can awaken that, and there's zero story to tell after the relationship, which for me at least, specific people inspire the music, I feel. And those stories translate, like I get responses back from other people going through things during those stories, their life story, which is very interesting.
That is interesting. I've experienced that too. And that's why I think music is such an interesting language of emotion, because even though it's abstract and there's no words, sometimes it can be very specific, and you can express yourself and what you're feeling in a way that someone will understand better than if you told them.
I mean, absolutely, very well said, because one of the first, very interesting, I thought that I was going to be just a session guy. Remember back in the day, you used to pick up Mix Magazine or Modern Drummer or Keyboard Magazine, and you hear about Vinny Colaiuta running through the sessions in LA, or Josh Freese, or all these professional musicians. And I was like, I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to be a session guy, So I'll just play on everyone's albums, and I'll learn how to read music, and I'll be the guy. And then as I start getting into different bands and working with different composers, playing their music specifically, I want to call it God, Mother Nature, whoever you want to call it, start sending messengers to you. These messengers come. Who are they? I don't know. They're just friends. Hey, what about your music? Oh, we like what you're doing with this, but what about your music? We want to hear your sound. And I'm like, me? I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm a session guy. I'm a hired gun. No, we know you can do something else. We know that. I'm like, what are they talking about? Like, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm on tour with good bands, making a living. Then after 20, 30 different people, I'm like, wait, I should start writing my own music. This is like, I guess somebody's telling me something because it's like coming so often. And then I write one of my first pieces called Deep Thoughts. Very, very like ethereal piece of music played on, the melody played on this instrument called the kawala, which is like the cousin of the ney, another reed instrument. And it was a tough time during COVID, sitting in an apartment by myself. Stopped talking to a person that I really had a lot of feelings for, and had a falling out, and one of those natural things that happen when you're so far away from each other in unfortunate situations. And I start to tell the story of how I feel through this piece of music. And, you know, that piece of music gets released. That person that I stopped talking to finds it on Spotify. I get messages from cancer research facilities in Europe saying that they would like to buy some, forgot how they put it, the rights to put it in some kind of, I don't know, video of theirs or something for cancer research to find traumas that people are going through and unlock traumas that they're going through that possibly have caused these cancers in their life. Yeah, like I thought it was a spam mail reading this stuff. I've had people I've met on festivals where I was performing on the beaches in, Bonjuk Bay, and they're just like 3-4 years later sending me a message like, yo, I don't know why I feel like I need to tell you this, but I'm going through some stuff. And my Spotify was on this like meditation editorial playlist. And all of a sudden I look down and I'm like clicking on what's going on in my issues in life, tough days, rough life. And I look down and it's your music playing as I'm like unlocking this kind of situation. So I start to realize that it's not necessarily my music, my sound. It's not the selfish thing. There's something very, 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 very deep in this connection we all have with each other, telling this a true, real, I'm telling you, when I was playing that and writing that music and listening back to it, I was telling the story of my sadness. That's all I was doing. And for it to become a therapy for a lot of people and now reaching millions of streams and kind of just like taking a life of its own, go on its own and growing, shows me that honest, delivery of music is not just a therapy for yourself to get out, but it becomes an extremely powerful thing for other people because, us as lovers of music, we're so inspired by so many people. In the beginning of our composing life, it's very shocking for us to hear somebody feeling the same effect as they would a very famous song that we, grew up listening to. So owning that position and owning that kind of role in certain people's Rolodex of music becomes a very interesting kind of reality.
Yes, I bet it's gratifying.
Yeah, it is. It's a kind of completes the story for that song in a beautiful way that you never thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
When you made it.
Do you ever think though that let's just say you have a perfect life from here on out with no problems, no stress, you reach total enlightenment? Do you think like, oh man, then my music will not be good anymore?
Have I ever thought that? No, because I get very, very, very interesting feelings when I hear other people's stories, when I see things that are bother me, that make me sad, make me happy. There's a lot of darkness in the world that is existing today. And there's a lot of people that aren't as sensitive as I am to it. So I feel like even though things, let's just say hypothetically speaking, will be amazing and unfold in the most incredible way, but there's always something interesting to pull from and write about. And it doesn't have to be depressing, because as you know, right now we're making electronic music, dancing music. So I've also had to teach myself that people on the dance floor don't want to hear the saddest melody. You know, that it's like we have to like snap out of it, bro. Start to celebrate. Start to celebrate your story now. Start to show that there's a lot of brightness inside of your heart, and there's a lot of groove that you would love to watch people dance to. So writing from heartbreak in a melancholy way is a very beautiful thing, and it's an interesting thing for us to, you know, recycle to music from those interesting relationships. But bringing a lot of fun to the dance floor also has become a really big part of my life, and it's an interesting shift that I've done from going to playing with live bands and touring with System of a Down and technicians and all these things I did in my past, to now being alone on stage and a bunch of people staring at you, right, on the playa or somewhere, going, make us dance. We want to be happy. Let's go all together. And it takes a lot of practice in understanding how to shift that energy. And I'm still learning a lot from that world. But I found so much more joy in my life watching people dance to music I've created. Yeah, just as much as watching somebody shed tears to a sad, you know, experience.
Amazing.
Melodies.
You mentioned God and Mother Nature earlier. Do you believe in God, or do you prefer to believe in Mother Nature?
Well, for me, you know, I've been talking to my God for all my life, in my heart, in my soul, in my sleep. I was a kid. We grew up in church, very ancient church, you would say, from the time of Christianity, as old as you could get, let's say, right, 1,800 years. And so I don't really know if it's what it is. It's a spirit. It's a word. So you could choose what word you want for that. But for me, it's an internal spirit, and we have a relationship together. I don't believe I don't believe in like there's no one's listening. I don't believe there, you know, I believe that there is something that's listening to us. There's something that is creating this electrical pulse that's beating in our heart that creates this masterful, perfect engineering. And Mother Nature is, for me, intertwined in the same exact way of it, and the trees and the grass and the sky and the dirt, and it's all connected into it, you know, and they feel, you know, I feel when I'm walking around a bunch of trees in a forest all alone. I feel when I'm connecting with my God, with my spirit, with my, you know, creator, something that is extremely real, and somebody's listening, because when you really connect and ask and pray on things that, you know, you want to be and become, and then when you become an adult, you see them unfolding in absolutely miraculous ways that are only scripted in the most incredible films. How can you not believe? You know?
Yeah.
How can you not believe? I mean, you choose what you want to believe in, but there's something there, and it's there. It's for you. You have to tap in, you know?
Do you believe this creator, God, whatever we call it, do you believe it's all-powerful, or do you believe that it has limited power?
You know, I believe that, to be completely honest with you, there's a little bit of an interesting flawed engineering in the human creation. I mean, when you research what the early Neanderthal went through to get out of that phase to, create the next phase of the human and what was before them, and they find all these like artifacts of things with spears in their hearts. It's quite extreme. I mean, it's very extreme, but because I research it a lot. I want to know, like, what did the early humans do? What did they eat? How did they, because it's always related to music for me. I'm always wanting to know, what was the ancient people listening to? How did they find the flute 60,000 years ago from the bird bone? What was going on there to inspire that sound and frequency? And all I gather at the end of it was there was just a lot of death and murder and killing. And it's just like it's continuing to happen. But it's just like, without the darkness, there is no light, and all this, it's extremely mind-boggling. But it's like, I don't know about this all-forgiving, wonderful being of just like, everything is great, because it's not,
Well, the reason I asked the question is because I had a thought recently about AI, actually. Because I was like, well, we created AI, but AI is very soon going to overpower us. And we are not going to be able to control it. And that made me think, if there is an all-powerful God, or that once was an all-powerful God that created us, I mean, if we created AI and we can't control it, what if God created us and God can't control us?
It seems that way. It's an interesting one because it seems that way. I mean, to create a nuclear bomb that blows up an entire incredibly beautifully created city and beautiful trees and beautiful that doesn't make any sense when it comes down to like this beauty is just like can be destroyed by one person's engineering of an idea that gets tested. And they go, yeah, there we go. We found it. There it is. We found it. That's what we want. Absolute destruction. So I don't know if that's God. I don't know if that's the other thing downstairs, the devil. I don't know.
Well, it's just us. I'm saying it's us.
Is it created to make us appreciate the light that much more? Because it doesn't make any sense to me when I see any kind of mass destruction, So it's a very interesting topic. Especially with you saying the AI thing. Back in the day, we used to watch Terminator 2 as an Arnold movie, thinking like, "Oh, this is so cool, man! Robots, this, that." It was so fascinating when we were kids, and it's starting to develop. Yeah, it's an interesting time because we're all unsure. Nobody knows. Everyone's having these topics on Joe Rogan, and everyone's kind of going deep with it and giving their opinion on AI music and AI robots and AI taking over. Even the people who created the AI are saying like things that are like a little like, "Hey man, that's not so confident. I'm not so happy that I'm hearing you say that, Sam." You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah, I think it's like you really have to like protect your spirit and protect like, this information coming to you because it's coming pretty fast. And I know it's very cliche to say protect and this and that, but there's a lot of things that you could choose what you want to be, exposed to. And there's a lot of things that, you could be very, very useful and helpful to you, but I don't really find it to be so inspiring, to be completely honest with you, to see something that just can tell somebody how to create a bomb in 25 seconds when they want to in the middle of their house,
I know.
It's insane to me.
That is insane.
It's just by people that want to make a lot of money, and that's all they care about. And they just will sell anything that will create money. And that's so not spiritual and so not connected to our practice. Yeah, we have phones. Yeah, we use ChatGPT for things, but you know, that's just how we all evolve. I mean, every single person on earth, there's many that never wanted a cell phone, ended up having one, right? The Pope
Right.
has a cell phone.
Yeah.
Everybody has a cell phone. Like, you know what I mean? You know, I'm sure they held out too when it came out. But yeah, I just hope that just people hang on to that purity, because it's starting to slip a bit.
Yeah.
You see it on the dance floor too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, nobody dances anymore.
I've noticed
What
that.
are you filming? What are you filming? Have fun, dance. We will we'll deliver the better set you ever heard in your entire life if you give us that back. But holding a camera in front of my face, it's like, okay, I'm playing my instrument for 20, 30 seconds. It's cool, you know what I'm saying? But you will see the DJ or the band or whoever you're playing for deliver you something very powerful when you just, especially like you go to a Tool concert, they don't allow cell phones and everyone's in it.
Amazing.
And then at the end, they say you can film this song, and everyone gets their film out, gets their, you know, fix. But when you go to places where they have this like intentional presence that's happening, like be present, be with us. Don't worry about filming, man. We're going to film and post all day. You guys could share it. It's very beautiful. I go to a lot of places. I'm like, wow, I didn't film anything. That would have been a cool memory. But I was also in the moment, you know. I was there. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect. I filmed some performers too because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But just holding it half the show is trying
Yeah.
to just hold it steady and not really let loose and enjoy the moment. It's a little, you know, too much.
I agree. I mean, I don't even think that I don't even think it's necessary at all, to be honest, because when you have a memory in your mind, it's so much more powerful than looking at it back on your phone.
I mentioned I saw Robert Plant play a Cancer Foundation for UCLA fundraiser in 2005, I want to say, in Pacific Palisades, in the backyard of a house. I used to work for this company that used to deliver bars for Patron tequila, and we would put up the signage at these sponsored events. And I show up and I watch Dave Grohl open up on acoustic guitar, Robert Plant, who sound checked in front of my face during setup, Roger Daltrey closed the show. I had an iPod where you could take a picture with it at the time, and I just have one blurry picture with Robert Plant during sound check. And I never filmed a single moment of that. And it's embedded in my memory. And it's a beautiful place I could go to whenever I want to, like, you know, remember that experience, you know, or just I've traveled on tour with my favorite athletes from the Detroit Red Wings before. I had a flip phone that I don't even think had a camera at the time in 2006. I don't have one picture with Darren McCarty, the guy who scored one of the greatest goals in NHL Stanley Cup history for the Detroit Red Wings, brought the greatest joy to my family's life when we were kids during that Stanley Cup run. I don't have one photo of that memory at all, and it's one of the greatest things embedded in my head. So
I can hear it the way you're talking about it. And I really would take a big bet that if you had a photo of it, you wouldn't talk about it the same way.
It's special. Yeah, it's interesting. I see it right now. He roomed with me for a couple of nights. It was like the greatest experience of my life. Yeah, it's very interesting, you know. I went through memory lane on my cell phone a few days ago and just like had some things I needed to send to somebody. And I was like looking back at some shows, but I really don't go back in your phone 7 years and look through things. Like there's a lot of things going on. You still do the picture and the video,
Right.
but it's all here, man. It's beautiful, you know,
Yeah.
to have it in your mind.
And it also, like, when it's in your mind, it delivers it to you when you need to see it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to say right there. That is really nice, actually. Yeah, those are those special experiences. They just start falling out of the sky in random moments where you just remember that beautiful experience. And I have a lot of those where the pictures are not in my phone and the videos don't exist, but they're embedded in 8K HD in my brain.
Right. I love
I
it.
see them right now.
Amazing.
They bring me so much joy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes they bring music with them too.
Oh, yes, they do. Because when you're looking at your phone, then you get a text and an email comes through and you got to answer it so you can get back to this work thing and this and that. And now you're just like, the memory's gone. The vibe is not really like, but there are so many moments in my memory, in my life that is just absolutely. There's this feeling I've never talked about before. It almost like trembles my heart, and it makes me feel like there's like an ultimate rush of dopamine happening when I remember a certain someone or hear a certain song. And it's one of the most incredible feelings. And I've never spoken about it until today, to be completely honest with you. I've never shared it with my mom or sister. Oh. Me and my sister have a term where we say it makes you geeked. Like when you're a kid, you're so geeked and you're just like extremely like, you know, slap happy. I don't know what they say. But yeah, but I rarely get that if I look into my cell phone. It's when you look deep into your spirit, deep into your soul, and you remember those nostalgic moments, and you can hear. I don't know if some people can hear. I can hear thoughts, and it's a beautiful thing to hear that person's voice.
100%, bro. Like I have a memory that comes to me a lot. It was when I was like 18 or 19. And I went to a concert, and check this out. The opening band, like the support act, was Rage Against the Machine. Okay, nobody knew who they were. They hadn't had a record out yet.
So good,
right? I know. And we were there to see Suicidal Tendencies. Was the headliner. The headliner was Suicidal Tendencies. And Rage Against the Machine comes on, and no one knows who this band is. And they come on, and like Zach just got crazy energy, and also like no one's ever heard hip hop with like guitars like that, you know. Like yeah, Ice-T did Body Count, but it wasn't the same thing, you know. This was like, oh my god, energy, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and then Tom Morello's doing his guitar thing, and it sounds like a record scratch, you know, like. Right now, it doesn't sound like that because, you know, the Rage sound is the Rage sound, right? But like back then, no one had heard the Rage sound. So you're just hearing a guy who's making his guitar sound like a DJ scratching. And you're like, what the hell is going on? What is this? This is unreal. And then they do that song, Killing in the Name. Ooh, they close with that song.
Oh my God.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And Zach's just like jumping up and down and up and down.
Opening band.
Right? And like, this is so crazy because I don't have a single picture, a single video, a single anything. It's one of the most vivid memories in my mind. It's so vivid.
It's amazing. I used to practice to their album Battle of Los Angeles.
Oh my
God, the music on that album. I mean, all their music is phenomenal. I have that similar experience with Tool concerts. Tool was that band for me also that really spoke to my soul. And they had this like, I still want to meet them so I can ask them about, you know, I've seen them out in places, NAMM and this, so I don't bother them. But I've even, you know, set up Danny Carey's drums before, but I still like, you know, was being respectful, and it was like I was teching for the club, you know. And I want to talk to them about some things, but I don't have a single video memory, nothing about it. And you know what people post these days is Tools making mistakes and YouTube compilations of that and this and that. It's like, what is good? Do you guys realize what you're doing? This is the greatest masterpiece happening, and you guys are focusing on an offbeat little thing because the guy just traveled forever. So anyways, so meaning those videos, you know what I mean? It gets a little where the memory in my head is like those tours, the feeling of being in the middle of all those people collectively feeling the music and not focusing on anything other than really, truly, you know, moving as one with a collective group of people. This is what rock and roll concert and for me is number one feelings. Yeah, those nostalgic moments. Zero phones. Nobody had a phone. It was 2001.
Yeah.
So yeah, those were amazing experiences of those rock and roll days, and going to System of a Down concerts and hearing those guys playing the Middle Eastern sound with the rock and roll heavy metal. That was for me that was the pinnacle, you know.
I bet. Wow. Amazing. Would you feel like gracing us with your nay?
Yeah, sure.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thank you.
You got a few of them there.
Yeah. So each one of the nays are is different keys, different notes. So this one, they call it a kızne. Kız in Turkish means girl.
Oh,
So I still haven't gotten to that why they call this the girl, but the flute is kind of in that bit of a feminine frequency tone, and this is in B. The tonic of this instrument is in B, but depending on which scale and mode you're playing, can be moved to A minor, can be moved to E. But this one I'll play in B. I call this one my Ferrari because of the fluid feeling I get when I play it. Others are challenging to play. This one is one that just Mother Nature engineered.
when you say it's in B, are they all in a minor scale?
No, because they all can also play major scales, but the actual each instrument, when you hold all the notes except the bottom, that's the tonic of each one of them. So this one's in B, the other one is in A when you do this, the other one is in F sharp when you do this. So yeah, so we always just go by that tonic with this. It could be like this would be A, but this is in B.
So if you're playing with a band and they and there's chord changes, would you have multiple nays and just switch?
Yeah, when there's modulations, good question. When there's modulations in the music, yeah, there'll be another flute, just pick it up and play. Yeah, if it's like, for instance, you're playing in harmonic minor in Do, right? C.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden something happens where it goes from harmonic minor to a quarter tone back in like, I don't know, like G or something like that. You will have to pick up that G flute and play that quarter tone, because now you have a quarter tone on A where the flute in C was playing A flat and B flat. It had no A natural. So yeah, so now you have to kind of like do some quick math and move around.
Okay, well, what about if in the music the key is like A minor, and then it switches to C major, which to anyone here who's not a music person is essentially the same scale. Do you stick with the same thing and just play the same scale, or what do you do then?
No, I would switch to the instrument, the flute that plays the C major, because if I was going to play the flute that's in A minor,
Yeah.
typically it's interesting because we'll play it like with the B flat. We don't play it with the B natural typically. Yeah, so I'll have to like do something like pick up something like the G or this one and play the C major. So where I have the B natural. Yeah, so because if we play a lot of Phrygian, like this one here, we'll play Phrygian B when it's natural. If I wanted to play the B natural, I would have an F sharp flute. I would play the F sharp flute. Makes sense now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when, you have to do some very quick math and really build a relationship with each one, because they all have very, very different characteristics. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear something. Wow. Oh my God.
That was a
Wow.
piece called Gamzedein. Gamzedein Deva. And it's written by a composer named Tatyos Efendi. Tatyos Efendi died in 1913. He was an Istanbul Armenian composer. And he died at a very young age, in his 30s. And he left a massive amount of works. And rock bands have covered the song. Classical orchestras have covered the song. It's a timeless piece. I mean, you heard the triplet changes. Dun, 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 dun. When you play, a heavy metal band can play a song like this and it'll still translate. He was a very prolific composer of peshrav music and samais, which are long-form classical pieces that they highlight the modes in the song. So the first movement will be one mode, the second movement will be another mode, the third movement will be another mode. But the common thing is that the chorus will always be the tonic mode, the main mode of the song. So it's a practice of how to play and modulate in that world and play different scales and different, the harmonic minor, melodic minor, the quarter tones. And yeah, he left a book of music. Yeah, so that was one of the pieces that just happens when you pick up the instrument,
Yeah, that's just gorgeous. I mean, I closed my eyes for much of it. I opened it a few times to look at what you were doing. But it's when I closed my eyes, I mean, it really transported me. And it took me to a very, like a 3D environment in my mind. Like I started feeling dimensionality behind me, like aware of space. Like it almost sounded like the sound that was coming out was almost like snakes moving forward, backwards, behind me, around me, like, and just multiplying, and so it was very strong imagery for me. And then I was thinking to myself, okay, but for you this is complete emptiness.
Black.
There's nothing there. Black. Wow.
Black. Yeah.
So interesting.
One of my favorite things in the whole world is to hear people's imagination, what happens with them when I play these very old instruments. These instruments date back roughly around 4,500 years. The Santur, 3,500 BC. They found Babylonian drawings, caves in Babylonian areas, but I think it was Persian Empire. I don't think there was a Babylonian, Assyrian, because in our culture we don't play the santur. Like I'm sure there's in history we have, but yeah. So it's very, very, very beautiful to hear what it does for certain people. Yeah, it's something that never in my wildest dreams would I've ever imagined that. I just knew it moved me and I wanted to learn how to play it. And every single instrument one of these that you buy, because you don't just buy them from some random store, you have to find a maker who makes the right ones for the air pressure in your body, the way that you can intonate comfortably, and also the way they get delivered to you. I mean, you give them your address and they forget to put a few numbers when they send you the packing slip. You're like, oh my God, how are they going to find it? He didn't put my apartment number. Oh no. And then I have to find the UPS guy in the neighborhood during the tracking of the thing. And I have to find him. And I'm like, oh, I found him. There he is. And I knock on the UPS. He's like, hey, no, I don't have your thing. You got to go find another UPS driver. And then all of a sudden he comes out with this like tube. And he's like, I think this is it, man. Here, let me see. Yeah, that's it. And he's like, oh, dude, they did write the address wrong. Oh. And you're just like, oh, man, it's not the guy's fault. He's like, he doesn't speak English or anything. So you're just like hoping. And you're like telling them like, dude, don't forget to write my apartment number, this, that, whatever, at the time when I was living in apartments. And yeah, it's every one of them has an interesting story. And taxi drivers that take me to the airport, and I'm like, hey, we have to stop by and get a flute real quick from the guy, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. And taxi driver ends up like stopping the meter and having coffee with us, and just like, dude, don't even worry about it, man. We're just having fun here, because he's in a factory of flutes, and we're just sitting here and just like, you know, intricately picking our instrument and which one is to us calling. And there's been so many magical moments with this instrument where I've been gifted ones that I really needed but I never got. And it's like, yeah, it's like the E flat one. I never ever thought I'd have one, and I needed it. And then one day I went to get a D instrument, and he's like, oh, I made you something special. And he's like, oh, here's an E flat for you. And I was like, oh my God, I needed an E flat, but I never got it because I only use it on one song. So there's a lot of beautiful magic that happens with this beautiful instrument.
That's amazing. One of the things I really enjoyed as well was like hearing your breath reverberate from the inside of the...
Yeah, you change the...
It's magic. It actually made me think. I mean, I do love hearing it in electronic music. You know, that is a beautiful thing. But, you know, the hi-hats and the sounds in the production of an electronic track, they kind of like cover up that delicacy of that breath, because they're kind of in the same frequency range. When you just play it straight up like that, it's just like, whoa, you know?
Yeah, I don't put it in dance music so much, but I do have, I'll play you some stuff in a later bit where there's elements of electronic music in it when it comes down to like the pads.
Yeah.
Or a certain like percussive element. But typically, I know what you mean, the frequency space for this instrument, especially when you put a nice delay on it and a beautiful reverb, it really... It commands its own area, and it tells me right away. I've had a lot of people when I was starting to play it where they were just like, oh, bring your flute, let's put it in this rock song or something. And I was like, okay, I wasn't really connecting on that level yet. I was such a beginner, I didn't know. And then very interestingly enough, I started to, I'm like, oh, well, now I could play melodies, so I'm going to take it to my DJ sets. And there's alcohol at these clubs, and there's people in the back, and, you know, all the chaos that's happening around us.
Yeah.
And I can't make a sound. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to make a sound, and it's not happening, and it's squeaking, and I'm jumping the octaves and the fifths and fourths. It's like, wait, what would I just embarrassed myself here? Put it down, chill. Okay, maybe the sound wasn't good at this club. Another place I play at, I bring them out, trying to play. I see people just in full conversation, just in their own world, this, that. I'm like, you know what? This deserves respect. This instrument deserves respect. Not to say other instruments don't, but other instruments command a different kind of attention for the listeners in different environments. That's what I truly believe. I don't think every instrument belongs in a nightclub, and this is one of them that doesn't. And when I told some masters about it, they told me, oh yeah, this instrument, you don't bring it around alcohol, and the instrument doesn't appreciate that, and it won't give you what you want. And I said, it makes so much sense. Oh my God. And I just stopped. The Santoor is interesting because I play an electric Santoor now live.
It's like, bring out all the alcohol.
It's just like, it looks like a white spaceship kind of, and it's, you know, and I've realized this, Reza, very interestingly enough, that stringed instruments command an interesting attention to them in party environments where winds, other than like if you were going to play like a clarinet maybe, or a sax, which I don't really incorporate. But yeah, this kind of like instrument that is used in like ceremonies and special places to where it's like a therapy instrument is different. Yeah. But like electric guitars, the Santoor, I put delay on the Santoor, I put sometimes distortion on it, and, you know, phaser and stuff. And, you know, you're playing it with sticks, and it's a cool visual, and it sounds very nice and fascinates me. Then I want to show people and see if it fascinates them as much as it fascinates me. So yeah, I've been incorporating the santur in my sets a lot more. That's
Yeah,
been
I've
something.
seen them. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Danny, that was really amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. This was a lot of
course.
fun.
Yeah, it was super good.
Wonderful.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, brother. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Habibi. Habibi.
Are we one?